And we're back with part two of this Footy Feed special as we go club by club looking at your side's 2015 draw. We're up to the reigning premiers, and as always, Nick Bowen, the reward for a premiership season is a pretty tough draw the following year.
It certainly is, Matty. The Hawks have obviously been done no favours here. 4 of the 5 teams they play twice, the top 8 teams, and they include the Swans and Port Adelaide. North's the only other team, just out of interest, who has to do that. 4 of their first 5 games are against top 8 teams as well, so not an easy start to the year for the Hawks. However, there are some compensations for them. They play home blockbuster games at the G against Geelong, Essendon, Richmond and Carlton. They've also got 10 night games, although only 4 of them on a Friday night. An interesting one as well, a home game at Etihad Stadium against Port Adelaide, obviously their preliminary final opponent in round 21, which you might have thought could have been at the G.
Yeah, you might have thought that. They'll definitely be able to fill up Etihad Stadium, I would imagine, for that, if both teams are on the same kind of path that they were last season. Agreed?
Look, I think given the difficulty of the draw, it's a C, Matty.
All right, a C for the Hawks. Now to the Demons and Travis King. They've got a real chance to try and work their way up the ladder.
Yeah, absolutely, Matty. They've got the Dogs, the Giants and the Saints twice each, which you'd expect for the D's finishing where they did last season. Other pros at 13 games at the G, I'd be happy about that. They've also got one Friday night game this year, which is a bit of a surprise. It's a game they wanted. It's a time slot they wanted against Richmond on Anzac Day Eve. Both clubs are calling for it. It's a blockbuster time slot, not quite a blockbuster game just yet, hopefully down the track. Cons for them, pre-season training, it might come in handy if they've got down there early, the Demons, because they have double travel in rounds 2 and 3 to Canberra and Adelaide Oval. The tough stretch, rounds 5 to 7, Freo, Sydney and Hawthorn, so they could be swimming against the tide there early season. And then they've got, interesting one this one, a winnable home game against the Giants, but it's being played at Etihad Stadium. We all know that they lost to the Giants by 10 goals at the G, so I'm not sure where they play matters much to them, but you know, they've lost the last 20 games at Etihad, so it's a bit of a hoodoo for the Demons.
Pretty short flight to Canberra, though. It's just up and down. A grade for the Tees?
I gave them an A.
All right, an A for the Melbourne Footy Club. I reckon Demons fans would be pretty happy with their schedule. Now, Nick, North Melbourne only has 2 Friday night games. They've also got a huge match against Richmond in Hobart. So some pros and cons.
There are, Matty. I think they'll be disappointed that obviously they played 5 Friday night home games this year, so they'll be disappointed with that to go down to 2. But I think bringing the Tigers down, the first really big name Victorian club to play down at Hobart's really quite a coup for the Roos. They've got, I suppose, on the pro side of thing, a really favourable last month to the draw. They play the Saints at Blundstone Arena. Then they've got 3 consecutive games at Etihad with Freo, the Bulldogs and Richmond. So another thing as well in their favour, 7 Saturday night games, which I think will give them some good exposure. And they only play the Hawks, Swans and Port once, which is obviously a great result there. It's a pretty tough start to the season for the Roos, though. They've got their first 8 weeks have included an away game against Adelaide. They've got Port, Geelong at Simmons Stadium, where the Roos haven't played well for quite a while. Hawthorn, Richmond, Essendon, and then just to top that off, Freo at Patterson Stadium, which is obviously not an easy assignment at all.
All right, give us a mark.
Give the Roos a B. I think that they've got a reasonable draw after a tough start.
Now, Port Adelaide has a very challenging start to the season, Trav.
Yeah, absolutely, matey. They've got a brutal start to the season. I'm not sure what they've done to deserve this to power. They've got 5 huge games to kick things off. Got Freo away, got the Swans, and they got North away, Hawks, and then the Crows off the bounce. So it's 5 very difficult games to start with. Other cons they have next season, only 1 game at the G, that's against the Blues. They face the Hawks, the Swans and the Dockers twice each. Got back-to-back travel late in the season. This could be a bit of a killer. Hawks and the Gold Coast away, rounds 21 and 2, then Freo at home, round 23. So that's not easy at all. Pros for them, they open the rounds 11 and 15 at home against the Cats and the Pies. Huge games, those two. 10 night games, so a bit of prime-time footy, and they've got the Anzac Day on Saturday night against the Hawkers as well.
Yeah, they've certainly earned playing in that prime-time time slot. There's no doubt about that. A grade?
D+, savage fixture for the Power. Probably the worst in the competition, I think.
All right. Now to Richmond, and they open proceedings against the Blues.
Yeah, Matty, I think they'll be obviously rapt to have that season opener again against the Blues. They've also got a host of MCG blockbuster home games against Carlton, Collingwood and Essendon. And a surprising one for me in some ways, 7 Friday night games up from 4 this year. So they're going to really be in prime time quite a bit next year, the Tigers. Also a favourable opening month that could really set their season up, which I think will be important for them after their bad start this year. Carlton, the Bulldogs, the Brisbane Lions at the Gabba, and then Melbourne as well. So on the flip side of things, they play 3 of the top 8 sides twice from last year. They've got 7 six-day breaks, including 2 back-to-back ones. And in rounds 8 to 10, well, it's going to get really interesting for them then. Starting off, they've got Port Adelaide at Adelaide Oval on a Sunday. They then go to the MCG to play Essendon on the following Saturday. And following that, another 6-day break. They'll play Freo at Patterson Stadium on the Friday night. That
is a tough stretch, but a chance for the Tigers to potentially open their season at least better than they did the season before. Your thoughts on a grade?
I agree with you, Matty. I think it's a really favourable season. Opening to the season, I'd give them a B+.
All right, now a couple of 6-day breaks to start the season for the Saints, but they don't play any top 6 team twice, Trav.
Yeah, it's a pretty good fixture for the Wooden Spooners, as you'd expect, Matty, but it could get pretty ugly in the run home. You look at those cons, back-to-back 6-day breaks start the year. Very rough finish there. Port, Freo, North in Tassie, Geelong, the Swans and the Eagles in Perth. So, yeah, it might be a bit of a laboured finish of the year for Saints fans. Pros for them, only team not to face any top 6 teams twice, as you mentioned. Got the Doggies, the Giants and the D's twice, which would be handy. Interesting one here, the Friday night versus Collingwood in round 3. Probably unexpected there, but they'll be really happy with that. And also getting Carlton over in Wellington on Anzac Day. That's massive for them, an established club and the 100th anniversary of the Gallipoli landing, so I'll be happy with that.
A grade for the Saints?
Gave them an A. Got some really nice marquee games in there, apart from the tough finish.
Now, Nick, Buddy Franklin on the Friday night stage up to 3 times as we take a look at the Sydney Swans. I reckon that the TV broadcasters would be pretty happy with that idea.
Oh, I'd be absolutely loving it. And I think Swans fans will be really loving the return to the SCG as well, Matty. 3 Friday night blockbusters, as you say, against Carlton, Richmond and Collingwood. That round 20 clash with Collingwood is an interesting one. The first time the Pies will have been back at the SCG for 15 years. The Swans also hosting Port Adelaide on what's becoming a real marquee occasion, the Thursday night at the SCG in round 14 as well. So a really prime time, sort of good prime time exposure for them. They've had a tough draw, but a favourable last month where they'll play Collingwood, the Giants at Spotless, St Kilda at Etihad and Gold Coast. So that should really give them some momentum heading into the finals. Having said that, as you'd expect from the runner-up this year, the teams they'll play twice include Hawthorn, Port Adelaide and Geelong. They've also got 2 away games in Perth and away games against the rest of last year's top 6 as well. So it's a pretty hard draw.
As you'd expect, considering how well they did in the season just gone. A grade?
Correct, yeah. Look, basically, it's a C+, and I think it's the fixture you'd expect, but it doesn't make it any less easy.
All right, now to West Coast. And Trav, they'll be heading all over the land.
Yeah, I think they could find their way to the airport in the sleep, the West Coast boys, to be honest. A relatively good fixture, though, despite the travel factor. They only play, the top 6 teams from last year, they only play Freo twice. That's the Western Derby, Nick, as they call it over there, not the Derby.
Oh, thanks,
Captain Perfect. It's only been going for the last 20 years, but we'll let that one go. Dogs and Saints twice in the bottom 6. It's a good start for them. They only faced Freo, the finalists, in the first 5 rounds, and 4 of their last 5 games are at Patterson's. So if they start well, there's a chance to come home with a wet sail there. The cons, only the 1 game at the G next year. They'll be disappointed about that. They want to play there before finals if they hopefully get there in the next few years. They've had 2 games there the last couple of years. Rounds 10 and 12, they go to Hobart, then back to Perth, and then to the MCG on 6-day breaks. That's not ideal at all. And this year, they're flying all over the country. They're going Tassie, Darwin, Gold Coast and Brisbane. The only place they're not going is Sydney.
Yeah, that's the point, isn't it? They travel a lot, but they're travelling, that extra mile almost, aren't they, in 2015? A grade?
B+ for the Eagles. Not a bad draw despite the travel factor.
All right, last but not least, the Western Bulldogs. They haven't earned a Friday night spot at all, and Tom Boyd with some really interesting matchups.
It's going to be a baptism of fire, Matty, isn't it? I think if you look at his first 5 rounds, he's got Eric McKenzie from some team I can't quite remember, Trav, Alex Rance, Brian Lake, Daniel Talia, the All-Australian fullback this year, and Ted Richards, of course, the Premiership Swans defender. So going to be really hard for Tom. God knows how he'll go over those rounds, but tough start for him at least. Having said that, there's some serious pros for the in the draw for the Bulldogs. They play Melbourne and St Kilda twice. Just 1 top 8 team from last year twice, Port Adelaide. Just 4 6-day breaks, none of them back-to-back. And they've got a home game against Collingwood at Etihad in round 17, which again will keep the money men at the club happy. I suppose that on a negative side of things, prime time wise, no Thursday or Friday night games.
Yeah, and the AFL's been pretty clear on that. You've got to earn your right to play in those time slots. A grade?
A grade. I think basically it's a really good fixture. A.
A for the Bulldogs. All right, guys, we're almost out of time. Some clubs are happy, some clubs not so much. But let's start. Who are the big winners?
Trey?
I think St Kilda are pretty big winners. Obviously, finishing last, you'd expect to be. But they've got a great team coming over for Anzac Day in Carlton. They've also got the round 3 game against Collingwood. So they'd be pretty happy with that. No top 6 team twice as well. So they've done well there. The Power, they've copped it in the neck, basically. Don't know what they did, but they've got a really tough start to the season. So difficult for them.
The Power, the big losers for Travis King. All right, what about you, Nick?
In terms of winners, Matty, I think that you can't go past the Pies. I think it's almost the dream fixture, both commercially and on the field. Losers, look, I have to agree with Travis. I don't like doing it, but once a year I'll make an exception.
Right.
You just look at the on-field draw. It's just remarkably tough. I know that they're preliminary finalists from last year, but yeah, they're going to have to really earn their stripes again to get back there.
Yeah, but if they do, then it's going to be one of the great stories of the year, isn't it?
And look, they've risen to every challenge so far under Ken Hinkley, haven't they, Trav?
They'll take plenty of confidence if they can get, if they start 10-1 again next year, we'll be going their premiership favourites for sure.
They won't be 10-1 next year, mate. I can promise you that.
All right, guys, we could sit here and chat all day. Fixture day is such a fun day, so you can plan your year out, get your diary ready, get your calendar sorted.
How many times are you going to the Gold Coast?
I just want to get to the Gold Coast. Great to see you. Great working with you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Matty.
Travis King and Nick Bowen. Now, the next major event on the AFL calendar is the NAB AFL Draft on the Gold Coast. Stay with afl.com.au for the very latest on that and the breaking news from your club on the road to 2015. For now, from all the team, I'm Matt Thompson. Thanks for watching.